Okay, welcome back. Now we move on to our Know Your Right segment, and today, of course, we're talking about your data privacy, personal data privacy, and the laws to actually protect you from, having your privacy breached. We have joining us today two lawyers. They'll be, of course, the experts in speaking on this issue. But we actually want to, look at the Personal Data Protection Act 2010, which will be enforced very, very soon. There's no concrete announcement yet, but we believe it should have been around this period of time of the year. So now let's invite our two guests on, Mr. Foong Leong, and of course Edwin Yong Cieh, who's both lawyers. What are your specialties, gentlemen?
Oh, I do a lot of intellectual property.
Okay, IPs.
IPs, and Edwin?
Edwin?
Yeah, I'm also doing
okay. So you're the perfect people to talk to on this subject.
Okay.
Okay, now talk us through this act, the Personal Data Protection Act. What exactly is it?
Yeah, what does it encompass?
Yeah.
Well, you see, within the concept of privacy itself, there are actually 4 branches. It can be data privacy, information privacy, physical privacy, and surveillance privacy.
Right.
So, personal data protection law is actually a law to protect the data privacy as opposed to the privacy in general.
Right.
So it actually regulates the way you process someone else's personal data in a commercial transactions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what that means nowadays, so once this act is passed, people can't, or companies can't go selling your information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It will be
a
criminal.
lot of people actually do sell their and share their databases.
Yes.
And before this, they could do this because there was no act enforcing it.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only very limited circumstances. Sorry, in some circumstances, for example, they sell medical information. Then there is a certain privacy limit to it.
Right.
Right.
So because medical information already has that laws.
That's a common law principle.
Right.
Basic, right to privacy, basically.
Right.
So things like your medical information, pictures of yourself, those are quite protected.
Okay. Okay. So now, what does this Personal Data Protection Act protect? What sort of data are we talking about? Like my hobbies, my religion. What does it protect? What sort of data are we talking about?
See, under the definition, it says any information that is, they can identify an individual, that information will be deemed as a personal data.
Right.
So take an example, my name, Edwin, it may not be considered as a personal data, but when my name combined with my IC, my place of work, together with all this information, you can identify me as a person, then that information will be personal data. But this act doesn't protect companies' data.
Okay.
I see.
There are a few, from that definition, we can derive a few things from there. One of them, of course, your name, even your fingerprint, your DNA, even your GPS location can be a personal data.
Right, right. Especially now, your GPS so widely used and so
if you're
common.
Foursquare, where you are, it can be a personal data.
I see, of course, unless like in Foursquare, you decide to share that information. Now, that will definitely change how a lot of businesses carry out, especially those who deal a lot with marketing. And now, how are they going to have to change their ways, to make sure they don't get into trouble?
Okay. Well, if they have purchased the personal data without consent of the owner of the data, basically once the act is enforced, they can't use it anymore.
Speaking of consent, right? Like for example, if you were to purchase something or you have a commercial transaction or you want to use a particular company's service, let's say for example, and in order to use that, they sort of force you into agreeing to give them consent. Now, is that legal in the eyes of the law? Would that be considered legal?
Well,
like how it's okay. For example, on a computer, I want to use this service through a social media site. I want to use it, but they say, oh, you can only use us if you consent us to. You have to click these boxes to find.
It's unfair processing,
right? Okay.
So
is in the eyes of the law, is that legal?
No, I don't agree to it. But I think under the because our act follows the English position, the English law quite closely. Right. But the only part that is missing in our Malaysian part is that go back to the UK part. UK part says that processing of personal data must be fair. Right. But it is silent in Malaysia. Right. So if it's silent in Malaysia, doesn't mean can you process data unfairly in Malaysia?
That's ambiguous.
That's ambiguous.
You have to leave you go to court and sort that out.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that there are several types of privacy. Now, this is privacy of data, and there's personal privacy, surveillance privacy, and the other one was?
Like information privacy.
Information privacy. Now, how about things like, CCTV, that's under surveillance, things like that? Are we protected under this law? Yes or no?
Only in respect of commercial transaction. Only if the CCTV is made in a commercial transaction, then yes.
You're talking about the images taken by the CCTV. Yep.
Right, right. So even if you're, let's say, walking in a mall, and there are these CCTVs there, can they sort of, if somehow some people get hold of footage of that, can they actually,
Arguably, I think it would apply. Arguably, it would apply because the only difference of our act between all the other acts in the worldwide world is that there's the word commercial transaction. Any exchange or supply of goods or services or anything in commercial nature would fall under the definition.
But in this sense, let's say it's a CCTV in a shopping mall. So by stepping into the shopping mall, have you already engaged in a commercial transaction?
It could be, yeah. It could be. It doesn't need to be contractual.
Right, it doesn't need to be
contractual.
Okay.
Now, talking about data protection laws, it's new in Malaysia, but it's not new worldwide. So it's been around for quite some time, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, now what other, what are the reasons, what are the things that actually decide that it was, set up here in Malaysia? Why did they decide that now is the time to do this?
Okay, well, the advancement of technology has made it easier for data to be collected, to be disseminated, or to even be manipulated. So, the government sees there is a need to actually come up with a law to protect this data. And also another reason is the government would like to encourage the e-commerce.
Okay.
So consumer hesitate to actually engage in.
We actually have we just had a visual on screen just now, and I was wondering if you guys could comment on it and what we're actually seeing.
I believe it was
looking.
a map.
So if we could just pull back up that map that we just saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you can see from the map, most half of the countries.
What does the white represent?
This is worldwide, representations of countries. For blue color, it represents countries that have already implemented comprehensive data protection law.
Okay.
For white colors, it means those countries that have not had any law.
And what about the red?
Red colors, they are in the process of implementing.
Right.
And this map was quite,
so it's actually still quite almost half of the world still doesn't have data protection law yet.
Yes, but even in the States, they don't have it. Now the thing is, we talk about data protection law. We know why we're protecting our personal information, but why do we need to do it? Why do we need to, and how would it affect us? Apart from the fact that probably we won't get spam mails anymore.
Do you think Malaysians in general are quite oblivious to data, like giving out their information in data? Because some people, they just click, or especially online, so easy.
Yes, still need to be reminded. Don't give away your bank or your credit card information.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, if someone comes to you and asks you to fill out forms and sign, then people are very hesitant because that's engaging. But it's when we get on the computer, we somehow forget everything. Okay, we just click away.
You're protected because you're in the safety of your own home.
Yeah, you think you're safe, but. So I mean, how do we change the mentality?
I think generally the Malaysians they are quite laid back, or the level of awareness is quite low in terms of their protecting their personal data.
Right.
But I think with the enactment of these laws and when it comes to force, it will actually somehow increase the awareness.
Right.
And people are actually, I've read some surveys, like more than 50% of the people are quite hesitant to go into online transaction because they fear that their data will be misused.
Yeah. Another thing is that imagine yourself 20 years, 30 years down the road. Before that, you play Facebook and you say all sort of nasty comments, and you tell your friends you're ugly and all those things.
Right.
But 20 years, 30 down the line, you may be a CEO of a company. You're probably running for the prime minister, and then all these things surface out. So one of the principle under this act is actually called a retention principle. Basically, retention principle says that if you are not using the data anymore, there's no longer any use for it, you must delete it. Or another thing is that general principle is that if you have no consent to keep it, you must delete it.
Well, okay, is like sites like Facebook, because Facebook is the most popular social networking site in Malaysia. And
in the world.
In the world, and of course, Malaysians are one of the highest usage people. So is Facebook doing that? Are they deleting our data? Because I know they track everything. They store everything.
They store everything.
Everything that you've ever commented, ever status updated.
More than that, actually, I heard there was this independent body that actually stores every data in the world.
So now, under this act, once this act is passed, they're going to have to do it differently. They're going to have to delete it, or especially Malaysians' information.
Yeah, but only in
only in Malaysia.
Only when the data is processed in Malaysia, but Facebook is based in US, so the act doesn't apply to Facebook.
So now that's a whole different ballgame when we talk about borderless sort of information data collection.
Okay, now since we're talking about Facebook, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering. Even though yes, this Personal Data Protection Act protects the transferring of personal information when it comes to
commercial transactions.
However, there have been cases sometimes that, especially personal pictures or information has been taken off somebody's Facebook and is printed or is spread or shared through emails, blogs, whatever. In cases like that, what's the person's right? What can they do about it?
Okay, there are two limbs to it. First one is whether there's an issue of defamation or not. Okay. Most of the time, to take a picture, I'm sure if you are want to take action against them, usually is when they have done something wrong to you. You'll say bad things about you. Then the second thing is that whether it falls under the PDPA, sorry, the Act itself. But unfortunately, the Act is only limited to commercial transaction. So that Act, but in the UK, cases like Naomi Campbell's case, pictures of her taken while she's going for a drug rehabilitation. Her pictures were all posted everywhere, and that's where you can actually sue for those breach of the Act.
I'll say so. Not yet. Maybe one day.
Now, one last final question. Coming back to the CCTVs. So let's say if if I live in a house and my neighbors, is a bit, how do you say, like a bit protective. They want to put the CCTVs everywhere in their house just to make sure that they're safe. But of course, by putting that, it takes footage of your place. Now, how does that, is that a breach there?
There is an actual case for that. And the actual case says that no, there's no breach. First of all, there is no invasion of privacy in Malaysia. That is the case that has been held there. But there are conflicting cases whether there's actual right for invasion of privacy. The two examples is where, if you remember the case where the GRO lady, a lady was working in a club, and Rela came and raided the place. And then she was put in the truck, and then she wanted to answer nature's call. So she was forced to make nature's call in the truck. And while she was doing that, one of the Rela members whipped out a camera and started snapping pictures. And actual fact, she won the case. She got damages for it. And the second case is that where this patient went to see a doctor for some treatment, and while she was doing the treatment, the doctor took pictures of her private parts without her consent.
Oh God.
And fortunately, the court says that yes, what you have done is invasion of privacy. So
in that sense,
if you see those two cases regards to person's very intimate parts.
And there's a very active. It was a conscious decision to choose to record. But if it's the CCTV, it's placed there, and it just so happened it takes that area. So that's kind of great. That's not.
If you follow that's the Johor case. The Johor case actually says no invasion of privacy.
There's no invasion.
I think the court also said if the CCTV is merely set up for security purposes, for surveillance purposes, then it's all right. But if it intrudes into a private life, then there could be an issue.
So that means if it is sort of like angled towards your window and catches, what happens behind, now that itself is an invasion of privacy.
It could be.
Okay.
All right. Now, thank you very much, Edwin and Foong, for being on the show and helping to, explain this act a little bit, and especially our rights when it comes to our private information and data. And hopefully this Personal Data Protection Act will be passed sometime very soon.
Yes.